I'm Charles Robinson here with Frank Schwab on the rare Monday pod, the day after Christmas. I hope everyone had a good holiday. Frank, I know we're all feeling, I don't know, either the holiday hangover, COVID, we're all under the weather today.
Here's the thing, Charles. Me, producer Brett, we're both legitimately sick. Like we have illnesses. Who is coming on before we started taping complaining? It was you for losing at fantasy football yesterday. You took them all the time. So you feel sicker than both of us somehow, who are sitting here wheezing and coughing through it because you lost in Super League. But I kind of get it. I really do.
It's because it's literally the day it happens. Especially, I was the number one seed, and when you spend 4 months or 3 months, well, really 4 if you go into the summer, working to try and get to this point, you're like, I just wasted 4 months of my life. Like, why do I even do this anymore? This is stupid. I want to quit.
When you got the one seed, you got a team you feel good about, and then everything conspires against you. But I heard you had Tyler Higbee on the bench. That was good. That
was great.
Good move, coach.
A great move. I traded assets for Dallas Goedert. Waited out the IR. He starts. Tyler Higbee goes off. I'm like, yeah, this is great.
Yeah, you didn't. Nobody gave you the memo. The Denver Broncos were going to quit on Christmas.
Oh my gosh, I can't.
We'll talk about that. Oh my god.
As bad as we feel, there's plenty of fan bases that got to feel pretty bad about not only quarterback. I mean, this was an
angry week of like.
It was an angry week.
It was like, okay, this quarterback's dead. This quarterback's never going to play there again. This quarterback's washed up. This quarterback stinks. So even though we didn't, I mean, there's a lot of angst this week.
Yeah,
no
Christmas spirit.
Week. No Christmas spirit.
No, we're moving right on. We're headed into the playoff meat grinder. Let's start with Philly, Dallas. Obviously, Dallas. Not obviously, but look, the Dallas Cowboys beat the Philadelphia Eagles 40-34 in overtime. Interesting game. Lane Johnson. Now we're hearing is going to be out until the playoffs. Got an injury, which is a big deal. Hurts banged up.
Deal, yeah. I mean, their record with and without him is weird. It's like they're a much better team with Lane Johnson every year.
He's Trent Williams, right? He's this is the kind of tackle.
He's good, really good. Yeah, he's elite.
Yeah, super stud. And you're talking about a massive piece in your offensive line. Talked about this with the Eagles all. Like, hey, probably the best line in football if they're healthy. Bad time to have your quarterback banged up. Your best offensive tackle banged up. Your best offensive tackle banged up. But look, I wrote off this game, and I think what's interesting here is we saw each team beat the other's backup, right? Philly beats Cooper Rush. Dallas beats Gardner Minshew, who should clearly have been a starter over Matt Ryan, who clearly should have been a starter over Marcus Mariota.
Real quick on Gardner. We talked in our Slack chat at work. I said Gardner Minshew would probably be starting for 15 teams in the league. That looked a little bit high, but then we started counting it out. We got to about 12, 13. There's a lot of teams, the Denver Broncos. There's a lot of teams out there who would be starting Gardner Minshew in week 17.
Yeah. I mean, he acquitted himself nicely. Yeah.
He's going to make a lot of money. He's going to make a lot of money in free agency.
So, look, Dallas, what I ended up writing was, look, okay, you both beat each other's backups. We can argue about what those games looked like, whatever. The reality is we need, and I thought it was great that Dallas sure seemed to embrace this in the postgame. Sirianni comes off the field, and he says to McCarthy as they meet at midfield, first thing he says is, you got a great team. I think we're going to be something along the lines that I think we're going to be seeing each other again. And I'm like, that's what we need. Like, this game is two teams that need to run into each other, hopefully in full strength in the playoffs, so we can hash this out. And I think the winner of that game is the type of team that can beat San Francisco. We'll get to San Francisco. But, my takeaway from this game was just the point where I thought Dak could tank it, Dak Prescott, when he throws that pick six. I'm like, oh, God, back-to-back drives. If you go back to the Jaguars loss with a pick six. I'm like, they're doing a 10-0 hole. I'm like, this could spiral quickly. And instead, I think Dak rattled off like 14 straight completions. I thought he had one of his better sort of perseverance games in this one. A lot of imperfection, as we've seen with Dallas, and we've had moments where we've been like, okay, their defense can give up some points. And the Eagles, you saw a couple of plays where they specifically designed plays against Trevon Diggs, where they're like, we know what this guy will do in this play. And he bid on it, and they gouged him on some of the plays. It's going to be interesting to see where both of these teams are health-wise and whether or not Dallas can start to shore up, I think, some of those issues defensively, because they definitely have some weaknesses. When the front isn't just destroying teams, you can score on Dallas.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. They got to get that pass rush cranked up. That's their whole defense. I mean, and it's good. It's a good foundation to have. There's no doubt about that. But I thought the Eagles showed why they're the best team in football. Really, you're without your MVP candidate quarterback. You go in there, you're at what, the 17-yard line with a chance to win that game at the end with your backup. A good backup, very good backup, probably the best backup in the league. But I think this game said a lot about the Eagles, where it's like, well, okay, we lost by 6 with Gardner Minshew on the road at probably the second best team in the NFC, third best team in the NFC. Who cares? We're fine. Now, I mean, it does matter that Dallas is still alive for this NFC East. I don't think that Philly's going to lose out, but it's possible, at least if Hurts doesn't come back. We'll see. But I think that NFC Championship game, I haven't done the math on when they would play. I think it would be the NFC Championship game, wouldn't play before that. But I think that would be a heck of a game. And I think that would be, that's kind of the game we want. I mean, throw San Francisco in there too. They're a really good team. But it was just a good game. One of the better games of the year, really. And that says a lot about Philly, that they could turn this into one of the games of the year with Gardner Minshew at quarterback.
Yeah, I think this is another one of those games where I think it showcased Philly, from Philly's standpoint, how prepared Howie Roseman has made this team because of the fact that Minshew was on the roster. And this was
why
is
is exactly he on the roster,
why.
Charles? Because Urban Meyer gave him away. Urban Meyer's just a gift that keeps on giving, man. Give away what, was sixth? Was it a sixth?
That's a good point. It wasn't.
And when everybody was talking about, like, when Jimmy G went down and everybody's tweeting like, oh, they should have traded for Gardner Minshew. But the Eagles we're never going to trade Gardner Minshew because of this. They knew if Hurts goes down, we're fine. Like, we're not the same team, but we're good. We don't. I think the Eagles, as crazy as it sounds, I guess not crazy because of what Brock Purdy's doing, but the Eagles could win a Super Bowl with Gardner Minshew. I believe that. I think that they're that good of a team that they could win a couple home games with Gardner Minshew to make the Super Bowl, and then whatever happens there. I mean, they've already won one with Nick Foles, so it's not that crazy. But yeah, honestly, I thought it was a good win for the Cowboys. Great. But I thought like you said, their defense was a little bit exposed the last couple of weeks. But this game just, to me, said more about the Eagles, even in a loss, where it's like, whatever, went on the road, had a coin flip at the end to beat the Cowboys on the road with Gardner Minshew. Yeah, we're totally fine. Whoever has to play quarterback.
Eagles defense also, we must say, though, not perfect. Okay.
Eagles
had their own problems. I mean, look, turnovers, you get put behind the 8 ball when you turn over the ball as much as they did late in the game. Miles Sanders bad turnover. You get a couple Minshew turnovers. But Darius Slay gets hit on a couple of plays. T.Y. Hilton, the 3rd and 30. And T.Y. Hilton just says, I'm just going to run a straight line. I'm just going to go ahead and run right past you guys. I mean, there are a couple breakdowns that were a little, raise an eyebrow. All in all, particularly the secondary, the corners, it'll be fine, I think, with the Eagles. It happens. T.Y. Hilton made a really good veteran. I thought it was an amazing veteran move when they needed basically a flag. And, he cuts and slams himself. And I think it might have even been Slay. And Slay was pissed off. Yeah. But it was one of those moves where you're like, that's a guy's been in the league a long time, knows what he's doing, knows how to play leverage and momentum, and just basically gets the defender to run into him when he cuts on a break. It's living up to, a couple of the NFC teams, I think, are living up to what we had hoped they would be down the stretch. Not perfect. But when we started the season, what did we say about the NFC? A lot of imperfection here. Mm-hmm. Even the perfect teams have imperfection. We'll see how the injuries turn this around.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's swing it ahead to what obviously was the most, I thought, interesting game on Christmas Day. And that's Green Bay Packers 26, Miami 20. We'll get to the Packers in a second, but I think we got to start with Tua. I hate the fact that every single game for every single quarterback is a referendum on their career. It just it gets old after a while. But man, this was not a good game for Tua Tagovailoa. It throws 3 interceptions on the last 3 drives. Really takes away a chance for them to win a game that they kind of need at this point. They've lost 4 in a row now. I'm not going to sit here and throw out everything Tua's done during the season. He's been a very good quarterback. Week before, he was very good at Buffalo. They just lost in the last seconds to the Bills. But, I think that this probably shows, I guess, that Tua's not at that elite tier. He's not, we were talking about him as an MVP candidate a few weeks ago. He's not that necessarily. Where are you at on Tua? I mean, I just think this was a really, he just got in a slump and he just started not seeing things. I mean, all 3 interceptions were horrible. Every one of them. I mean, they're just inexcusable interceptions for even a guy who was in his 3rd year, can't be making them.
I call the week-to-week quarterback swings our Frank-orendum. How does Frank feel about this quarterback this week?
I try not to just trash these guys. Like people who, feel like, oh, Tua's just a backup in the league. Come on. Like Tua a few weeks ago was a top 10 quarterback. He probably still is.
The way I looked at this is when you step back and you look at the totality of the season up until this point. It was a bad moment for him, obviously. Has Tua taken a step forward this year? No question. Zero question.
For sure,
okay?
For sure.
Should you be fine with him as your starting quarterback? I don't think there's any question. I think you're okay. All right? You're fine. He had a bad game. To me, what I said in the moment was, well, we can stop this big argument everybody had about the stupid-ass Pro Bowl and he's a Pro Bowl quarterback. I'm like, the 3 guys ahead of him were Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, and Joe Burrow. You explain to me how, no offense, Tua's had a really good season, no question.
I get it.
He's played really, really well. I'm sorry, he is not on that tier. He just isn't. And if you think Tua's in that tier right now, you are out of your damn mind, okay? Just you're over your skis. He is, now could he be there someday? Yes. If he takes another step the way he took this year, okay, absolutely. From year 2 to 3, he's taken a monumental step. Takes another monumental step, 3 to 4, then maybe we're talking about a different situation. But what I think factors into that are games like this, where he melts down, where he just has 3 horrible, 3 drives that end horribly. The world comes down on top of him. You can't now go into a shell and go, oh my God, is everybody questioning me again? Oh, I need my coach to pat me on the back again. Yeah. No, you know what? At this point, and this is probably what pissed off Brian Flores about him. At some point, he's got to pick himself up without Mike McDaniel picking him up, without teammates picking him up. He's got to do the Tom Brady thing or the Pat Mahomes thing or whatever else, get pissed off and be like, you guys, I don't care I had a bad game. I'm going to be like Joe Burrow and go out there and gun it again. And whatever happens, happens, and let it roll off me. It's just a bad game, okay? So I'm with you. I'm not killing the guy. It was a bad moment. People were just waiting, circling, just waiting for Tua to have one of these games. I defy you to look at every other quarterback and not find where they had some meltdown games. Even the elite ones did. He's on his way. just let him be, okay? And
I think to your point, though, I mean, when he gets in a slump, it just keeps spiraling on him, and he can't drag himself out of it.
That's the thing.
Yeah, when Green Bay took that 6-point lead at the end, when LaFleur maybe should have gone for it, whatever. But they take the 6-point lead, they get the ball back. I know all of us were just watching, okay, what Tua's going to screw this up, right? I mean, honestly, I hate to say it like that, but I didn't have much confidence Tua was going to take them down the field because he had been in this downward spiral.
Well, he hasn't shown it yet, Frank. He hasn't shown it yet.
Right. And so I was just sitting there waiting on something bad to happen, and it sure did. He just threw it right away. It was a terrible pass. So I agree with you. I think that's a good point by you that he's got to kind of be, you got to, this is going to happen to you as a quarterback. You just got to shrug your shoulders and say, I don't care. I'm the guy here. I'm going to make this happen on the next drive. Don't worry about it, guys. I got this. He's not there yet. He's not. And, he's a young guy. We got to remember that. He's at the end of his 3rd season. We'll see. What about the Packers, though? I mean,
right.
Look, a lot of people, a lot of revisionist historians on Twitter are like, I'm old enough to remember when the Packers should have benched Aaron Love for the rest, or, should have benched Aaron Rodgers for Jordan Love for the rest of the year. Okay, I go back. Where were your tweets saying the Packers are going to make the playoffs? I want to know that. It's easy now, but both of us said maybe it's time. Maybe it's time to give Jordan Love a look. Well, look at the Packers now. Everything that needed to go their way this week went their way, and they got a big win. I mean, that was they really gutted this win out. Played pretty well in the second half after they were down 20-10, I believe, in the first half. They're going to make it, right? They got Minnesota this week at home. Minnesota ain't got much to play for. They know that. Minnesota's had a great season, but tangibly they ain't got a lot to play for. And then you're playing the Lions in week 18 for a playoff spot. The Packers are alive, man. They're probably gonna make it.
Well, and it's funny because that's sort of the microcosm of what's going on with Tua. Look across the ball. Look at Aaron Rodgers, man. Like this, he's the ultimate FU guy. Like whatever you think about me, I don't care. I'm gonna go on Pat McAfee, and sometimes I'm gonna look stupid, and I'm gonna go after journalists for stupid reasons, and I'm gonna say stupid stuff and all this. I don't care. I'm gonna go on the field and I'm gonna it at times. I don't care. We're never out of it until I say we're out of it. We're piling on him early in the season. I was one of those people who's like, yeah, you know what? Maybe it's time to give Jordan Love a look. I said it here. Rodgers was like, we're not out of it yet. We're not out of it yet. I'm kind of rolling my eyes. They catch all the breaks, whatever. And they made some of their breaks too. I'm not going to say they just caught breaks. They made some breaks.
Well, they've
and Rodgers played better.
Road win this week. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, Christian Watson. I think the turning point to me, go back to when that guy turned the corner. It created an element in the offense that didn't exist before. It created a focal point for opposing defenses to now look at this guy because he'll just run by you. And they used him in some different ways. They had all of a sudden they found a dynamic piece that, by the way, they drafted in the second round. Oh my God. And it changed. And also there was, some other guys came back healthy. Granted, the backfield's not the healthiest right now. But they got some momentum. And from the Tua angle, great. Look at Aaron Rodgers and see that this guy, now, of course, different part of your career, different age. The age difference is huge. You've accomplished so much. Many of these quarterbacks get to this age when they're on that kind of an elite pedestal and they just don't care about anybody else, whatever. They're going to plow through. But I will give Aaron the credit that when he said, we're not out of it, you guys, look at the bye, look at the Bears game. He was saying this before these things occurred. And then they played themselves into a better situation. Now, defensively, that was the thing, particularly against Miami. A big Achilles beyond the functionality of the offense having problems was the defense just never showed up in big situations or never showed up against the run or this. And then what did they do against Miami? They're there. Now, you can blame some of that on Tua, but you know what? You can blame it on the Packers too, or you can give the Packers credit too. You saw the emotion that they had on defense, particularly toward the end of that game. I was like, oh my God, momentum has completely changed.
Yeah.
The defense is playing, they look like they're playing fast. They're stepping into passing lanes. They look very problematic at this point. Well, that's what I thought we were going to get from the start with the Packers defense, and it didn't happen. Hey, look, if they play their way in, Detroit had a wonderful opportunity. They completely blew it. We're going to get to that. But if they play their way in,
team you don't want to play, right? Like a team I'm not saying that the Packers are great all of a sudden. The first half of the season still happened, but a Packers team that might go into the playoffs on a 5-game winning streak. Still got Aaron Rodgers. Still got a lot of talent on defense. Frank, now Christian Watson has emerged, like you said, if he's healthy.
Any team that goes in with momentum, right? Like if they go in on a 5-game winning streak, okay, and all of a sudden the defense is feeling better about itself. Aaron's looking at these young guys and saying, hey, I know I'm pissed off. We've gone through this and I wanted that. And I've complained about, maybe you're not picking up checks or you're not running your routes the way you're supposed to be. We talked about this earlier. Once the playoffs start, it doesn't matter. Whatever the hell you did before, and I'm going to put the Buccaneers in this or whoever else makes it out of the NFC South. When you get in, now everyone in the room can breathe a sigh of relief and go, okay, it might have been a complete train wreck to get in here, okay? We were a dumpster fire all the way through. But now we start fresh. Let's go out and do whatever the hell we possibly can. The Giants team, go look at the Eli Manning Giants teams that won the Super Bowls, beat Tom Brady. Those Giants teams they had portions of those seasons where we were like, what the hell? I remember when they beat the perfect Patriots team, they were basically the last team into the playoffs that year. Yeah. It wasn't by any, but you know what they had? Coughlin played all his guys. They had momentum. They went into the postseason on the heater, and then they just ran the table.
I'll say this, it is kind of playing out that the number 2 seed Vikings will host the number 7 seed Packers. Everybody in the world's going to pick the Packers, right?
Absolutely.
Everybody's going to pick the Packers.
I'm not
sure.
I think
the Vikings hate has gone a little too far. We'll talk about that. But yeah, it's a kind of game where you say, yeah, Packers can win that. They're a scary team with this momentum, like you said.
All right, moving ahead. As you know, we talked about the angry week. This was a perfect example of the angry week game.
Oh boy,
I've never seen a situation where this quickly a quarterback has become so reviled. And we're talking a number 2 overall pick, has become so reviled by his own fan base.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to say his own team, but I mean, we've seen what has happened with the team before. Zach Wilson and the New York Jets, the Jacksonville Jaguars win 19-3 in New York. You could not have seen a bigger contrast between a number 1 and a number 2 pick, to the point where it was funny. You saw these people going back in box score, looking at box scores and going, hey, this was the game that cost you, Jets fans. Yeah. This is the win you got that cost you getting Trevor Lawrence. It's one win. Was it worth it? And when there's that big of a difference, and we knew going into that draft, everyone was like, oh, Trevor Lawrence. And it looked like the Jets were going to be able to take him. And then they win this game, and you're just, and you're kind of like, what does this matter? Like, what in the grand scheme of things? Right.
It's like the Texans winning Sunday. Sometimes it's okay to just lose. Yeah,
absolutely. It could have significant. No, I'm not saying tank, but
I know, I get it.
It's just one of these games where you're like, this is going to screw up our franchise for how long? Now the Jets can feel that way, because in this game, Zach Wilson just booed mercilessly.
Fourth play, Charles. I was watching, and there's a screen pass. Their second series, they go 3 and out after the fumble. They should have scored. You get more points there, but whatever, that happens. Fourth play of the game from scrimmage, they call a screen pass, and the Jaguars just sniff it out, blow it up, and Wilson just sidearms one into the ground. Really not even a bad play by the quarterback.
Right.
And a boo started then. Fourth play of the game on a pretty much a blown up screen pass that he has nothing to do with. And I'm like,
didn't he do that when he threw that pass? Weren't you kind of like, well, yeah, that's what he should have done in this situation?
Absolutely,
because it was a loss.
That's absolutely what he should do. Like, you're not just gonna. They blew it up the screen pass. It happens. But the fans started booing, and I'm like, uh-oh. And then it just started getting louder and louder and louder. By the end of the half, it was just raining down on him. You're right. I can't remember. I mean, I don't know. I off the top of my head, I can't remember a top 5 pick that's just been this hated already. I mean, people want him out of there. I mean, I don't know. What the heck do the Jets do, man? Because even Zach Wilson was saying stuff to the effects of, I'm giving you the best I got, and I'm not very good right now, or something, whatever he said. I don't have the exact quote in front of me. It's bad there, man. And this is I had a line in that story after the game that he's just a second-year quarterback struggling, but he's in the wrong market to do it. If he was in wherever, Jacksonville or Atlanta or somewhere, there'd be some patience, there'd be some grace. No. Not in New York. Now Jets fans, they are angry, and they want him out of there.
Well, Frank, and it doesn't help, too, that when you're watching this game, and I know Robert Saleh said, look, we did this, it was we wanted to change a pace. We knew there was going to be an opportunity for us to get Chris Streveler in the game.
Yeah, that's
option. Basically, you're basically talking about an option quarterback. I thought it was interesting in the post game. Some guys were like, well, what about some obvious passing situations where you had him throwing to the ball?
He played the entire fourth quarter. Yeah.
Yeah, which was, you're like, that's a legit question. Like, yeah, that's probably, we get the change. But he comes in and immediately sparks the offense. And you're like, whoa, they go on a long run. I'll lean into Sal a little bit here and say opposing defenses, when you insert a quarterback like that the team has not prepared for, you're going to give up some plays because you're adjusting. You're sitting there going, oh my God, it's like a whole different, what defenses are we calling against this guy? What can he do? I hate to admit this, but it's true. I was like, I've never seen this guy play in my life. I was like, I don't even know. I was completely at a loss. I couldn't believe it. I was like, nice arm sleeve. That was my depth of analysis was like, oh, he's got a cool arm sleeve. But the second the offense moved and you could see the crowd went nuts, I'm like, oh my God.
The game was a different speed at that point.
Yeah.
They had 3 first downs and almost 3 full quarters with Zach Wilson. They had 4 first downs on that first drive with Streveler. And it's just and it's not saying something about Chris Streveler. Let's put it that way.
No, not at all.
It was not I was just like, this is how bad it's. Is Zach Wilson their quarterback in 2023?
No way. He's
Can't
not.
Be, right?
At the very least, I think you go, okay. Now, first off, I think Mike White, he's 100%. He's a free agent after this season. I got to go look again. But at the very least, the Jets have to go, okay, well, if Mike White is going to be someone that we want to factor into this, you got to pound out a deal with Mike White that says, we're bringing you back. Basically, we're going to make a decision on the starter here. If you win the job, and I think this was sort of like what they did with Tannehill when they brought in Tannehill in Tennessee. Mm-hmm. It was like, if you win the job, your quarterback contract, your contract is going to have the type of incentives that they give you starting quarterback type pay.
Yeah.
I think what the Jets do with Mike White is they go, anywhere else you go, you're not going to be a starter, man. You're here. You know our offense. You know the guys respond to you. You've shown some things. I mean, you broke your ribs for the team, basically. We got to clean up some things. You probably got to get the ball out a little bit faster so you don't get killed. But we'll open up a quarterback competition with you and Zach, and I think it's kind of a wink and nod thing. Like, if he beats me, beats him. Sort of like I kind of think of it like when RG3 was ending in Washington, and they're like telling RG3, like, yeah, man, we're going to look at you, and we're going to give you every opportunity, when they knew Kirk Cousins is going to be our guy. Yeah, like, he's our starter. Like, we're just...
So you do think Zach's on the roster next year? I said this, and it sounds crazy, but I don't really think it's that crazy because we saw Josh Rosen. If you told me that we just saw the last snap Zach Wilson's going to play in the NFL, I'd be surprised, but not that surprised. I would be like, okay, well, that's kind of strange for a second pick, but he's been that bad.
They got a second-round pick out of Josh Rosen when they traded him.
True.
Okay.
Yeah.
The Cardinals did. I think if the Jets could get a second round,
Andy Isabella, right?
I think if the Jets could get, like the Cardinals did, if they could get a second-round pick out of Zach Wilson, and they knew what their resolution is going to be at quarterback, I would not be surprised if that was the decision that they ultimately made. Because I think Joe Douglas, the general manager in the front office, I think there's an element of sitting there and going, okay, do I think that this kid can't ever make it in the NFL again? It doesn't matter what all of our opinions are or whatever. I mean, he knows what his evaluation is, so he's probably going to say to himself, I think he can make it. But the more important question is, can he make it here? No. I think that's the answer.
I agree.
Yeah.
I don't think he can.
Like, that was the answer I think we got, was like, can he make it on the Jets? No, I think everyone's turned against him. I think it's gotten to him mentally, and I think that completely has just... It's unraveled. It sucks. This is how it goes. But you know what? When you sign up to be the head coach of the Jets, when you sign up to be the general manager of the Jets, this is what you sign up for. The fact that you have a fan base, you have a press corps, you are in a market where it is a pressure cooker nonstop. You ain't getting any second chance. And by the way, when you're a quarterback and you go there, you damn well better know that. So if they have the option on the table, of trading him for something of value, any kind of value, and then they know what they're going out and getting in the offseason to start a quarterback, then I think
that makes sense. And real quick before we move on to the next game, Jacksonville, great win for them because it means Week 18 is the AFC South Championship game. Who would have thought that? They've gained 4 games on the Tennessee Titans in the last 5 weeks. Crazy. And let's move on to the Tennessee Titans. They lose at home to the Houston Texans, 19-14. And look, it's one of those things where we all were excited about Malik Willis coming into the draft. All wondered why he fell to a certain extent. Preseason, he put on a show. We're like, oh, man, this guy's going to take over for Tannehill, blah, blah, blah. Malik Willis ain't it, man. At least not yet. There's a long way to go there. You need to see something out of him, though. I mean, it's not good. And I don't know that they win the rest of the year either. Basically, they should sit everybody in Week 17. It matters nothing for them. I can't see this team going to Jacksonville winning in Week 18 with Malik Willis a quarterback. I think Jacksonville's going to absolutely run them, and probably it's going to be Sunday Night Football. This is, for as much as we praise Mike Vrabel is a great coach. He was really holding things together, and then it just all has come apart during his 5-game losing streak. This is ugly for the Titans. They're now. I'd be shocked when they made the playoffs at this point.
You think you're down for the rest week though? You would be like,
absolutely.
Russ guys.
100%. I mean, this is Week 18 is a playoff game. It's a playoff game. And I think guys talk, and I get it. I get the whole momentum thing. You don't want to lose momentum and you want to keep your guys fresh and all. To me, the most important thing in the NFL is a week of rest. That's why bye teams have done so well throughout history. Just think about this logically. It's the most violent sport you can play. Giving your body a week off to rest, giving Derrick Henry a week off from not getting 28 carries next week in a game that matters not if you win or lose. I think that's the most important thing. I don't think Vrabel does it. I think he plays his guys because he's kind of got that old school mentality. But I think they should sit everybody. We'll see what they do. But either way, no matter what they do, I don't know that they can go in Jacksonville and win Week 18 outside of something really weird happening or Tannehill miraculously showing up again. It's a bad scene for the Titans right now.
Yeah, I'm not against the idea of a maintenance week. It just goes against pretty much everything in the NFL. Like you see people do it in the NBA, and the NFL is like, what a joke. Like, what an absolute joke. Like, we're just going to decide in the middle of the season to sit one of our guys, one of our stars. Like although let's be honest, the NFL also says, well, they do their maintenance in practice. Guys only practice, late career Calvin Johnson's practicing 1 day a week.
Right.
That's it. Everything else is, walkthroughs or.
Would you play guys Thursday night against the Cowboys? Again, that game means nothing. You're playing week 18 for the division, regardless of whether you win or lose.
If I'm being tactical, I call the meeting with my players and I go, look, here's the deal. Sometimes you have to make tactical decisions, okay? We know what's in front of us right now. What's important to me is keeping you guys as healthy as possible and knowing that the playoffs begin for us in week 18. In any other situation, we would sit guys. If we knew we had locked up a playoff spot or we knew when the playoffs began for us, we would rest guys the week before that playoff game, and whatever happened. So I'm now looking at you right now saying our playoffs begin week 18. That's how we're gearing this. We're taking this is effectively the last game of our regular season. We're going to rest our guys that we need for the playoffs in week 18. That's it. We just tell them on playoffs start a week early for us. Maybe you don't agree with this, but this is how this is going to be. Plus, and how I'd paint it as the league. Why are we paying a Thursday night game this late in an 18 weeks?
You got to look at
17-week season. Yeah, you can also turn it on the NFL and say these Thursday games suck. We have a turnaround right before a big game. And then you tell the guys, you know what, once we get beyond Thursday, we got all that time to prep for week 18.
And I'll say this, the one guy who has to sit this week is Derrick Henry, because the only way I see the Titans winning is one of those 35 carry, 211-yard games for Derrick Henry week 18, which is possible. Right. He's Superman. I get that. I'd sit him down and say, big fella, look, here's the deal. We need you week 18 for 35 carries. Get rested. Get off your feet. You're not playing on Thursday.
What if you win? What if he does that? He balls out. He win, and you win. You beat Dallas, and then you come out flat in week 18 and you lose.
Yeah, right. What? It just makes no sense to play, especially Derrick Henry. Anybody else you can make an argument for, I'm fine with that. Derrick Henry does not see the field for me if I'm in Mike Vrabel in week 17. It just makes no sense. Get that guy ready for his 35, 40 carries against the Jacksonville Jaguars and what's going to be the AFC South Championship game in week 18.
All right, let's go ahead, Texans. Keep winning games. We'll see how we feel.
Oh my goodness, the Texans are screwing up this number one pick, man. Yeah. They're screwing us up.
Keep winning games.
We'll see what are you doing?
This is the nightmare. Let's move on. This is the nightmare that I envisioned for the Detroit Lions. Okay, you get on a run, you're playing well. All of a sudden it feels like you're turning it around. I'm saying, look at the overall schedule and the 1-6 start. How they played everybody tough. Finishing matters in the NFL. Okay, and you know what? Finishing really, really, really matters when everyone starts to jump on your bandwagon. When you get in the headlines, people are feeling you, and you're on the talk shows are talking about you midweek, and the pregame shows are talking about, hey, Detroit, look what Dan Campbell's doing and all this stuff. And then you go to Carolina, and you absolutely the bed defensively. You look absolutely horrific.
They lose against to the Panthers, Charles. Yeah, against the Panthers. Their offense stinks.
They lose to the Panthers and Sam Darnold, 37-23. Deontay Foreman. You just running back who, granted, I think he looks good when he looks good, but just that good. Detroit, and this is the worst part for Lions fans, is they feel like they get sucked in. They feel like they're like, oh, all right, we're in, and they get all amped up. And then they lose that game. You can't, if you thought you were going to go on a run and make the playoffs and be a team that teams were scared of, you cannot lose to the Carolina Panthers, and Dan Campbell can't come out afterward and basically say that he doesn't understand why this happened. I will say this to Lions fans, maybe it makes them feel a little bit better. I do think that turning around a bad culture means going through moments like this, where you're starting to turn it around. You don't know what that feeling feels like, except that you love it and this is great. And then all of a sudden you put yourself into a wood chipper against a bad team you should be. I don't care if they are better under Steve Wilkes than they were under Matt Rule, which is true. That's fine. We can say that. But still, if all this stuff about the Lions being a team that maybe a playoff team should be scared of, this is what happens when they're just not ready for that kind of praise, and they got a lot of work to do defensively. Jeez.
Man, I mean, Foreman and Chuba Hubbard had 100 yards in the first half. This is again, if you get rung up by the Cowboys or somebody who has or Chiefs or whatever,
Pollard and Elliott,
yeah, you're like, okay, that's cool. This is Sam Darnold, Dante Foreman, and Chuba Hubbard. Come on, what are you doing? And in similar vein, if the Lions lose this game on a last-second field goal where something really weird happens, you're like, that stinks, but whatever. They got run out in this game. I mean, the score does not indicate how bad this game was. They were never in this game. You could tell from the first quarter on. The point spread for this game was Lions -2.5, and all week I was like, this is so fishy. They're begging you to take the Lions. What's wrong? And well, you saw early on, Panthers just come out and just roll them. And it probably, like, the Lions probably got to win at Lambeau in week 18. We'll see how it shakes out after week 17. But that's the problem with going 1-6 is the rest of the season has to be perfect. You can't have a game like this. Like, you have no margin for error anymore. You come out and lay an egg. I'll say this about Carolina Panthers, though. I mean, boy, they're basically playing for the NFC South title against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers now. This was a game they had to win. They had to find a way to win this. They did. And if they win the division title over the great Tom Brady, which is totally possible, they've already beat the Buccaneers 21-3 this year. They could go into Tampa Bay and beat them. Steve Wilkes, we keep just throwing up our hands and saying, no chance he gets a job. What did they do in the division?
Frank,
which is totally on the table for them right now.
Go back to when Matt Rule was fired, okay, and compare. At that point, we're talking the week after Matt Rule gets fired. Compare Tampa and Carolina the rest of the season. Carolina's a better team.
Oh, they're a better team. By far. I mean, Tampa Bay is 2 last-second drives and an overtime win away from being on a 1-9 stretch right now, okay? They're not a good football team. Carolina has played really well under Steve Wilkes. And I'll say that I don't think that David Tepper is going to hire Steve Wilkes. No matter what. It doesn't matter. Unless they go to the NFC Championship game or something. But he probably should. This guy is a good leader, and he has had this team respond to him. They traded their best player, all-world running back, and they've gotten better without him. Like, I think that he has done a great job leading this team. If you would have told me, when was Matt Rule fired? Week 5? Week 6? If you would have told me at that point, hey, Carolina, if they go into Tampa Bay and win in week 17, they're probably going to win the AFC or NFC South? What are you talking about? What do you know? They're probably going to go 2-15. They're not. But here we are. Steve Wilkes, hats off, man. I've said that many times. You have to, whatever happens with Steve Wilkes after this season, whether Tepper hires him full-time or not, he's probably earned himself another head coaching job somewhere in the league.
For 100%, we could turn this conversation back 1 year, and we're having the same conversation about Rich Bisaccia.
Yep.
Same conversation. Literally, we're like, he's earned himself.
The Raiders should have kept Rich Bisaccia.
Hey. Right. No, but that's what we're saying. We're like, well, whatever happens, they're probably not keeping him. Mark Davis probably isn't keeping him. Whatever that happens, Rich Bisaccia has earned himself a shot at another job. Yeah. And then he got fired. And and it looks, it looked in hindsight like maybe.
No, you're right.
But so I kind of feel the same way about David Tepper. I just can't believe that he's convinced himself after firing Matt Rule. I always felt like David Tepper was his mindset is like I feel like he doesn't buy into this idea of modesty or whatever, just he now, especially when you look at his moves the last couple of years, I think it's like for him, he feels like it's got to be a moonshot. Every time he makes a change now,
he's Daniel Snyder, and not Daniel Snyder, kind of the other Daniel Snyder stuff. Maybe, but the way he runs the football team, Daniel Snyder, like you said, absolutely everything has to be a headline. Absolutely, we have to. Nobody's going to be like patting me on the back if we hire Steve Wilkes. We got to go get some big name college coach or something like that. Just hire Steve Wilkes. The guys like him. The guys are playing for him. He has got this team playing. I don't want to say great football. They're not even good football, but play well enough that we're talking about them in the playoff race and going into week 17.
What the pieces are. I mean, look, it's still Sam Darnold, okay? Still Sam Darnold.
Darnold's playing pretty good football lately. I mean,
horrible Lions defense, but still the guy completes 15 passes for 250 yards. This is ridiculous. This is a joke. Yeah.
They're playing well. Let's throw it ahead to the next game because this one was really interesting. Cincinnati Bengals 22, New England Patriots 18. I mean, I'll be honest with you. Obviously I have to kind of write ahead for winners and losers on Sunday. I had however many words written on Bengals are awesome. Yeah, the Patriots stink, but let's not. The Bengals are up 22-zip. Joe Burrow in the first half, I believe he had 284 yards and 3 touchdowns. I'm like, this Bengals team is better than their Super Bowl team from a year ago, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I had to delete all that when the Patriots are on the 5-yard line. And Ramondre Stevenson just fumbled. Like, I feel bad because Ramondre is a great player. He really is. He's a really, really fun running back. And he kind of made the mistake that, I mean, not that it's all his fault because it shouldn't have been down 22-zip at halftime, but he makes that fumble that probably cost the Patriots any chance to make the playoffs because they were going to win that game. Like they were going to come back from 22-zip to beat the Cincinnati Bengals and somehow get back in the playoff race. Well, that's kind of off the table for them now. The Patriots problems are well documented by now. Is there just the Bengals kind of fell asleep in the second half and we don't care, or is this? I don't know. I thought they looked awesome in the first half. Like this is a Super Bowl team, and then not so much in the second half. I thought they just fell asleep a little bit.
I think two things happened. Number one, I do think that when you're playing a team that is offensively as putrid as New England can look, and you go up to that kind of, you go into the locker room with that kind of lead. We can say whatever we want about the NFL. They're still, it's just. I think it's human nature where you're like, oh, we got this. Like, we got this in hand. Maybe it's not the most focused halftime. Maybe your adjustments aren't state of the art at that point because you.
And also, you got the Bills coming up next, and then the Ravens after that, which is probably for the division. Go on.
I mean, I don't think they're thinking that during the game, but I think they're like, we got this in hand. Right. And then the second half, they come out, they're flat. I think the offense for New England, caught a couple breaks. Jamar Chase fumbles at one point where you're just like, how often is Jamar Chase going to fumble that? It's just certain things went the wrong way with Cincinnati. It's like these games where teams show up to play Houston and it's like, what the hell is going on? Well, I'm sorry. I don't think anybody prepares for, I've said this for weeks. I don't think people are preparing for Houston like it's a first place team. They're preparing for Houston like it's
first pick of the draft. Yeah.
It's a bad team. So halftime, again, it's just a momentum thing. I'm not losing my mind. And the reality is New England did fumble it away. Cincinnati made the play when they had to. They saved themselves here. I'm not going to, freak out about it. It wasn't a great game for Cincinnati, but this week matters. Okay. Like this week's a big deal for the Bengals. It's going to tell us a lot.
Big game. Next 2 weeks are really, really good.
Yeah. Moving on. Throw it back to the Minnesota Vikings. Beating the Giants 27-24. I don't think the game starts until they're behind anymore. With the
right. It's like, you got to screw it up. You got to
play poorly for a bit. Look bad. Kirk, look like you don't know what you're doing. Just be garbage for a bit. And then, when everyone, as soon as people start tweeting like, now they're in trouble, then you turn it on and I know it's dumb to keep repeating the same thing over and over again, but I've never seen a team where they just keep doing this over. Of course it's going to bite them. They're absolutely going to end up losing a game. I think there's probably little question in my mind they're going to lose their first game in the playoffs. Whoever they play.
Wow.
I think this is going to be a situation where they put themselves into a hole and then they can't suddenly recover from it. But I don't know, man. I don't know.
I'm so torn on where I stand on the Vikings because everything you say is absolutely true. At the same time, they're 12-3. Like,
is that a winning trait though? Like,
I don't know, man.
Listen, I understand coming back. Okay, is a winning trait. Being able to come back.
It is.
Having to constantly come back every single time you play, no matter who it is you're playing, I don't think is a winning trait. Being able to come back is a winning trait. Having to come back every single time you play is not a winning trait.
Fair. That's totally fair. Yes. And the analytics side of me just goes, this team's no good. They're going to lose their first playoff game, just like you said. But then there's a part of me that's like, this team absolutely has a lot of mental fortitude. And they know, like, when they're down, like not even 33-zip, they're like, whatever, we're gonna get back in this thing. And, I talked about having to delete my Bengals lead for winners and losers. I went right to Kirk Cousins and said, at some point, I know haters, you hate Kirk Cousins. You don't really want me to say he's even a decent quarterback. This guy has 8 fourth quarter comebacks this year, 8 game-winning drives in the fourth quarter this year. Any other quarterback, we'd be praising the heck out of them, saying, what a clutch guy. Oh, my God. Because it's Kirk. Every other defense chokes. Oh, they just gave it away. No, Kirk is having himself a good season. He's not an MVP candidate.
Pretty good.
He's pretty good.
He's
299,
sure.
3 touchdowns. 299, 3 touchdowns in a game that, look, you're tied 24-24 with 2 minutes left. He just drives you downfield. Greg Joseph hits a field goal. Give Kirk some credit, man. He's played well. He's a perfectly reasonable quarterback. And I think there is something to be said about the fact that the team believes Kirk's kind of an oddball, right? Like he's an odd guy. But I think when they're down or tied or when they need to drive, I think they actually do believe Kirk Cousins actually has the goods to do it for them because he does it over and over. And Kevin O'Connell, too. He's having look, whatever we want to think, Kevin O'Connell's having a heck of a year coach. Like, for him to kind of have that slow heartbeat and just, hey, we're going to figure out a way here. They keep doing it over and over. And that is, hey, I get everything he said. But at the same time, the Vikings, they're 12-3, man. Like, they're 12-3.
Frank, this is crazy. I was thinking about this after Kirk. He throws 3 touchdown passes in this game. And I'm like, where's he at? So I go and look. He's going to have his 4th 30-plus touchdown year in 5 years. I mean,
wow.
we dog out Kirk Cousins. We do. We really do.
People crush him. If I told you last week, if you go on social media and say, I don't think Kirk Cousins is that bad, be prepared for the next hour.
Lose their minds.
Fight off people losing their minds. Not even he's good. Like, he's okay. No,
they just destroy him. They hate him. They can't stand him. There's some trait about him people don't like. Because he doesn't come up big when people expect him to. I get all that, but it's just crazy to me. And by the way, the one season in the last 5 where he won't have had a 30-plus touchdown, he had 26 touchdowns, 6 picks. Okay, his last 5 years, 30 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, 26-6, 35-13, 33-7.
Wow.
He's 27-11 and now, so let's just say ballpark it. He's going to finish like 31 and 14, 31-13. Okay.
Yeah.
Any other you take away the picture of him. Okay. The pick on his page. You just show any team. Here's your quarterback. What's he worth in free agency? They're like 45 to 50 million a year in free agency, like zero question. If you told Cardinals fans, here's what you're getting from Kyler Murray for the next 5 years, they would be like, sign me up.
Yeah.
Please
where's
give me
my
that
pen? Yes.
Yeah, like, dude.
By the way, it's a question that people lose their minds on. The Kirk Cousins signing for the Vikings was good, right? It was a good signing.
Listen, okay,
I don't care if they haven't won a Super Bowl. He can't do everything.
Here's his completion percentage in Minnesota since he signed in Minnesota.
Sure.
70%, 69.1, 67.6, 66.3, 65.7.
Yeah.
His touchdown, his total career touchdown interception ratio right now, 250 to 102.
Wow, he's got 250.
He has a 2.5 to 1 touchdown to interception ratio. We kill this guy. Like, I get it. I went to Michigan State, okay? Like, I went to Michigan State. I'm a Michigan State guy, okay? He played, by the way, Kirk Cousins played high school football not far from me, right?
Really?
Like, one time he asked me, he's like, where'd you play in high school? I told him where he played. I was like, I told him I played in Byron Center. He goes, oh, the Bulldogs. I'm like, oh, my God. I'm like, we're like a Class B small school. Like, the guy totally – I have every reason to not – but I get it. Like, I understand. And yet when you just look at the numbers – he was a good signing for Minnesota.
Good, man. He's been pretty good.
So dumb.
Haters are just going to not like it.
All right, we got some breaking news in here. Nathaniel Hackett has been fired as the head coach of the Denver Broncos after falling to 4-11 following a 51-14 loss to the Los Angeles Rams. Really tough loss. Probably the most embarrassing loss of the season. Interestingly enough, ownership put out a statement after firing Hackett saying that they have confidence in general manager George Payton. They will start a head coaching search immediately. Frank, you and I have been talking about this on the podcast for weeks, if not months, that everything was coming apart at the seams in Denver, not only with Russell Wilson, but I think even the team chemistry. You see Brett Rippon, the backup quarterback, is basically fighting with the offensive line during the loss to the Rams on the sideline. It felt at some point it crossed the line of inevitability. It's very rare to see a first-year head coach fired in season when it is not something that causes just a massive breaking point in the franchise, like let's say with an Urban Meyer. This was, I feel like, just a more cumulative breakdown and implosion. So Hackett out. Just sort of thoughts on this at this point, where the Broncos go moving forward.
Yeah, it's crazy to think that he didn't even last his first year. And it goes back week one. I mean, they kind of settled for the 64-yard field goal by Brandon McManus, which misses. Broncos fans are out on him right away. We remember week two, they came home. Fans are counting down the play clock. And I mean, and then after that, fans leaving. I think it was the Jets game when it was still close, or an overtime game, whatever it was. We saw 18,000 no-shows here in Denver 2 weeks ago against the Cardinals. The fans had totally turned on Hackett in the first month. They wanted him gone before the end of September. By the time he got to mid-November, it was just, like you said, inevitable. Look, when you fire a coach, in the NFL, it's pretty easy to turn around really quickly, right? You've hired the right coach. If you have enough pieces in place, 1-2 years, everybody talks about, you set the franchise back 10 years. That really doesn't happen in the NFL. 5 years is a lot. But in this case, this franchise is in really, really bad shape. I can't remember a franchise being kind of in this bad of shape at this moment in time for a long time. Like, it has happened, I'm sure.
Right.
But when you look at Russell Wilson's contract, the draft picks they gave up, now you're going and trying to find a new head coach and selling him on this program that was so bad you had to fire a first-year head coach before his first year was over. This is not just hey, hire the right coach and you're going to be good next year. This could be a multi-year thing for the Broncos. It's in really, really bad straits right now.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think the thing that they have going for them is if they're healthy, there's still plenty to work with on offense around Russell Wilson. And I have to believe that the next hire, it's going to be about reclaiming what they were hoping to get with Russell Wilson. It's just too hard. You can't cut half your roster, okay, to get out from under the Russell Wilson extension. And I think really there's two ways they can go here, okay? Sean Payton's a name that's going to come up. He would have to be acquired from the New Orleans Saints. If you're looking at Sean Payton, you're saying, look, he's got experience. He had Drew Brees and had a lot of success offensively. Drew Brees, late career when Drew's arm wasn't the biggest, did a good job scheming around Drew Brees to start to deal with some deficiencies in his game as he started to decline. Or I think there's the flip side. You go and you try and find someone who's young in the league right now. You look at Ben Johnson, Detroit, is someone who we thought of Jared Goff as being this horrible impediment in this trade from the Rams. And yet he's helped to really reinvigorate Jared Goff in some sense in Detroit and make him a workable piece moving forward. So, Sean McVay, that's one of the scenarios I think about when Sean McVay first got the job with the LA Rams. When he went out there, they sat him with Jared Goff. He said, here's all the things that you do that I really like, and here's how we're now going to shape the scheme around you, turn you into a Pro Bowl level quarterback, and be able to go to a Super Bowl with you. He accomplished all those things. I think that meeting with Goff was what landed McVay the job, at such a young age with the Rams, and we've seen how that's turned out. So they have to weigh, what do we want? Do we want experience? Do we want someone who can come in and just write the entire franchise? Or do we want to go with someone young who might be lightning in a bottle and this can be that big step forward that we're looking forward and spark Russell Wilson at this stage? You can get Frank on Yahoo at Yahoo Schwab. You can get me at Charles Robinson. You can get Brett Rader at Brett Rader. Please check out the mothership at Yahoo Sports. And as always, help us keep Terez Paylor's legacy alive. Check out Breaking Tea, that's capital T.com/Terez for the All Juice Tea or hoodie. Remember that proceeds from that purchase go to support the Terez Paylor Scholarship at Howard University. You can also contribute directly to that scholarship if you check out our podcast description. We'll tell you how to get the money there, as well as to a scholarship in his name at Power Mizzou. If you could, please leave a 5-star review, tell a friend, help us grow the pod. Let's expand the family as we head to the playoffs. And we will be back Wednesday night for that episode.